You want to clap it?
You want to do the little...
You can do the clap. There you go. The clap is here. Welcome to the podcast. And Rory, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Shane.
Yep. We're going to be talking about workplace culture, specifically for professionals within the tech industry. How do you build a culture that is built on values in an industry that is rapidly changing? So I'm excited to have Rory on the podcast and just to get to know a little bit about you and the kind of meaningful work that you create in the workplace as a Scrum Master. And so without further ado, Rory, tell me about your a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, cool. Thank you again, Shane, for having me here. And hopefully this ends up being one of those really just good conversations where, you know, I think good things are born out of conversation.
Totally.
And that's where I'd love to see more conversations happening to a point, right? Like to have a conversation and go, oh, we've discovered something. Now let's go and work upon that. So yeah, we could go far down that. But my career, I used to be a developer. I kind of trained a little bit between development and had an artistic background, but decided that, you know, computers were the place where I saw myself spending a lot of time. Became a developer working in back-end and front-end systems. But it was really after a good 15 to 18 years of working like that, realizing I was never going to be the best developer. You know, I love solving problems, but I wasn't burning for technology. But there were other problems that became very interesting to me, especially with working with deeply professional, intelligent, educated people to solve problems, and just seeing people get stuck. You know, and the impact that that can have on them personally, people around them, and how these groups work and how that even impacts their lives when they go home, you know, people that are close to them, their friendships. So it just became a very interesting, like the people problem became maybe a little bit more important than the technical problems. So I still like to very rarely tinker around with some technical things, but it's people that make me come alive. And I found it took a long time to find this place of working in Scrum and agility, that this was a place that I could add value. My poor wife had to spend many days of just seeing me come home, just being like, oh, what's my purpose? What am I doing here? And it was in, again, being a Scrum Master, that I was like, okay, this makes sense to me now. And not only that, it seemed to be well received by people around me and teams that I worked with. So that started a great journey that, I mean, I never expected to be sitting with you here in a, you know.
This is the pinnacle of your career,
that's
right?
It.
Being interviewed by me.
I've made Shane's podcast. You know, but you know, who would ever want to listen to anything that I've got to say? But we've got something here, so let's hopefully it grows.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, I've like on your LinkedIn, I see that you have throughout the years created a sort of community, and so I think my question to you is like, what values do you bring as a Scrum Master that motivates your everyday life? Like, what do you do? What are the values that sort of motivate the things that you do?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of work is based on 3 Ps, especially in the tech world. You know, you've got product. There's a product that's being built. You've got a process that is used to make that, and obviously you have people that are involved in that. And I touch on all 3 of those things, but I come most alive when I'm looking at the people going, if I can not solve the people problem, but if I can help people solve the people problem. When you go from being controlled from an outside force, and there's outside discipline, to self-discipline, to inner discipline, inner motivation, you know, when people come alive and burn on the inside, they can do incredible things. I think we've all had those, read a story or watched a video where against all odds, somebody just puts their head down, they had a vision and they went for it, and things got out their way because they're like, I'm going to go sort something out. When people come alive, the world can change.
Yeah.
And I've just seen too many people stuck in comfortable positions.
Yeah.
I've seen people stuck in good jobs with good salaries, just not going anywhere, and it didn't serve anybody, not even themselves actually at some point. So as a Scrum Master, Scrum comes with some values, and I don't want to spend too much time being a Scrum evangelist in this place.
Scrum evangelist.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing in the tech world. There are so many frameworks and methodologies, and if you get known to be good at one of those, people then it becomes a position that somebody will work from or defend, right? And I don't want to go that way. So hopefully this isn't about Scrum, but some of the things that have come out of it that are really important to me is Scrum has 5 values which have helped me shape some of my thoughts. And those values are, one of them is focus, the other one is bravery or courage, the third one is commitment, there's openness, and there's respect. Those 5 values offer many talking points and many ways to engage people around how they work with the problems that they've got, with the people that they've got in their teams. And so it starts a really good conversation. So as a mission, if I can help bring a little bit of fire and a little bit of structure, not too much, just enough that would support somebody else's growth and a team's growth and an organization's growth, to go, oh my goodness, we can now stoke something and we can start burning and people want, when you see someone going for something and they're burning, other people want to join them. When there's a mission and it seems like it's going somewhere, people want to join that. So I want to help organizations come alive, help people come alive, to improve their lives and improve the world. It's a small mission. It's a small mission. So
how important do you think it is to be able to have a healthy workplace culture?
Well, if you're not working, it's not important. But for most people, work is an integral part of what we do. A key part of it for me, switching around, is work going from a chore to work going to a privilege. We are fortunate that we live in Denmark. We are fortunate that we're part of the West, where there is actually a massive level of affluence that we are not scraping by. Many of our needs are well taken care of, and we have the privilege of choosing actually where we spend our time and what we give that to. So key for me is changing that from work is a chore, oh my goodness, it's Monday, I have to go do this thing, or it's this time, it's this day, and things are terrible. That Sunday blues is just, who wants the Sunday blues? I think Sunday should be a time to be excited about the opportunity you're going to go get to change something. So that becoming a privilege, and seeing what problems we're solving. Yeah.
I'd love to ask a little bit more on how you go about solving that problem, and you've described this problem as the golden handcuff problem. But before that, I'd love to hear what, if a company is a cog or a machine with many different moving parts, where does the Scrum Master come in, and what do they solve? Like, what problem are you solving on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. A Scrum Master can take many stances. Some of them are as a coach, some of them as a mentor, some would talk about delivery or delivery performance. For me, and I think this is well stated in the Scrum community, a Scrum Master works at 3 levels. They work at a team level, to actually on the ground with the people that are trying to sort out the problems with their technical skills and expertise. They work with product owners, or people who are giving direction, people that are helping to prioritize what are the most important or valuable things we can be solving. And then they work at organizational level to go, we want to empower people that are close to the problem. How can we limit the bureaucracy? How can we change structures that actually, as trust grows, as empowerment grows, we give more power to the people closer to the problem? And that's where some of the most important Scrum work or Scrum Master work happens. And it's not always a place where I believe Scrum Masters are given the opportunity to work. Because if you want to think of hierarchy, you're letting somebody into that tower to go dismantle a few things. As you're empowering people that are close to the ground, it means by nature that power is a finite thing. You have to share power. You have to disempower some people who are used to having some power. Now it's to go, well, how do you do that in a way that is healthy, that actually benefits the whole organization, that benefits even the managers or the leaders are maybe from a traditional point of view becoming disempowered. They can actually in the long run it's producing what could never have been done by classic management principles.
Yeah. So talk to me about the sort of the oversight that a manager or the CEO, for example, now moving into like a scale up. What are the kind of things that they would overlook that your role helps to actually mitigate those problems?
Yeah. So becoming a scale up normally means that your company is doing well. You've had either you're bootstrapped yourself and you've got all the money well, not all the money, but you've got some money coming in, and you've got some decisions to make about that, about how you grow, who the people are that you get in there. Money is a finite resource, so you're thinking, how do we best use that? And if you're going from a startup where you've got a manageable number of people to a scale-up where maybe you can't have one person or two people managing those people or even those projects, you have to learn, leaders and CEOs have to learn a different skill set. And I believe it will go from the task allocation and actually cutting up work into logical kind of pieces that you can give to people, to becoming a storyteller, actually. And why now do we exist? From going from 10 people to 50 people, you have probably broadened the number of skill sets you've got. You've broadened the number of personalities. You've broadened your diversity of culture.
Yeah.
So unless you in a very homogenous place, and we're definitely not that in Denmark. In fact, most tech companies will not be homogenous because there's such a sought after skill, solving complex problems. So you have to become a storyteller that people that are in your company now, that are growing with your company, maintain the idea and the reason, and they actually repeat the story that you tell them of why they exist and what does success look like. And when you hit a roadblock, and you will hit a roadblock, if you're operating at a task level, which is, we get this website out, and for some reason something stops you from getting that website out, does everybody now just sit back and go, well, we need our next instruction? Or do they go, we understand that the website is part of a communication story, and while we may not be able to do that now, we've come up with 2 or 3 alternate ideas, which we've not just brought as an idea, but maybe we've fleshed them out and given these to you back as consideration. A story will engender somebody to give more if they believe in it. They will use not just the skill sets that they're employed for, but actually more than that. As a programmer, you are not, I'm 100% sure you don't just have development skills. You might have some hidden, latent creative skills. You may have some writing skills. There's a myriad of things that they could be. How do you bring those and employ those in a scale up to solve a problem that you weren't tasked to do, but you know the mission, you know the story, and you are hungry to see your organization go past. So CEOs, senior leadership, people cannot handle multiple lists of things to do, but a good story that they can repeat, that they'll tell to their friends. That's tasty.
I like stories too.
Yeah, I know, and you're great at presenting those stories. You've got. I don't know if that's was something you knew that you had when, you were growing and your skills were coming on. That actually, not only do I have an eye for a picture, but I can tell a story. I can empathize. I hope you get to teach many people and take them on that journey to go, that is a powerful thing. It's been something we've handed down through generations. That's how histories were passed down. I actually studied history at school.
You did?
I did.
I fell asleep in. No, I'm kidding.
No, me too. I also fell asleep during history because the way it was often taught was a series of dates and timelines.
Yeah. You didn't
But-
connect the real heart behind it, right?
Yeah, but when you get the story, when you understand that actually somebody had to walk through something and you can make it real, it becomes a whole new ball game.
Yeah. That's very interesting, just understanding the power of storytelling as this, we were talking earlier about the idea of, there are some things in your organization that you can measure and track with analytics. And then there's other things that almost seem like it's intangible, but it's tangible
Yeah.
in the sense of company culture. And that's what you work to build, right?
Yeah.
You're building company culture. And storytelling is that intangible thing. It's like well done storytelling, as you say it, is actually helping with what you do. It actually helps congeal the culture behind a company. Is that right?
I believe that.
Yeah.
It's storytelling is also not one of the skills that is classically taught in product development. It's not. I've never been on a MBA leadership type course, so I don't know how much storytelling is taught at that level either. But I believe it's something that many organizations and teams could really benefit from, because it becomes real, it becomes human, it becomes relatable. You can tell a story in your own words and yet still maintain the story. So, yeah, I would love to see more storytelling happen. People have 1,000 PowerPoint presentations, but a good story and a good storyteller, they will capture your attention, and you'll get thinking about that. Or they can become pivotal moments in your life. So,
Why do you think that is?
it's strongly tied to emotion. You can. We all know the highs and lows of going through things that went well, things that don't go well. Mountains we need to climb, mountains that destroyed us, and mountains that we got to the top of. And if we're honest, we should be able to see ourselves in many of those stories, because as far as we're unique, actually the human story is something that we all get to share. And isn't that also a beautiful thing that actually breaks down the barriers of what's going on in society right now? Barriers going up everywhere. But I can hear a story from across the world and go, oh wow, that person's just like me in many ways. I can understand that sense of loss or betrayal or or success and victory.
Yeah. I think it also speaks to the increasing level of distrust online. And when you describe something as interesting as a scale up, where your organization is expanding, you have many different perspectives, many different types of people, cultural, and especially in Denmark, if you want to get top talent, you've got 6 million to choose from here.
Yeah.
So you've got to look internationally if you want to actually attract something of high level skill. Not that Copenhagen, it's just a small pool here, right?
It's a numbers game.
It is a numbers game.
It really is a numbers
Exactly.
game.
So stories actually help relate people from completely different backgrounds, completely different experiences, and pulls it in to one singular, I relate to this. Analytics can only do so much. Analytics convince, but stories relate. Stories bind people together and give us a common vision.
Yeah.
Which I think, like you're saying, it's actually more valuable than people realize.
Yeah.
When it comes to productivity and what you do on a day-to-day basis, which is you help teams actually talk.
Yeah, and just work better. Many things can be measured, and people talk about SMART goals, that things should be specific and measurable and achievable, relatable, and timely. It's a SMART goal. And how do you know if something's achievable or measurable if you don't have a metric? And I believe in those. I really, really do. And yet, even as a Scrum Master or as an Agilist, some things are really difficult to measure. They're actually only felt in the story that is told looking back. Working with the team that we have right now, it's looking back over, where were we a year ago where we were cut by geolocation, where we've got some teams in Bangalore and we've got some people here in Copenhagen, and we work with guys in the States. We've got different cultures there, and it was a very task-driven kind of way of working, very much designed up front and one team to deliver and just pass it through the factory. Factory working is never going to get somebody excited about the end product and who's actually using that at the end product. And now we look back over a year, and I hear the stories coming back to me of just, oh wow, we are here now. And I could not say, actually one of the struggles of my role is that, I go, am I doing a good job? I can't always measure that on oh look, the graph is going up in this respect.
Yeah.
Because how do you measure we like to be together? I'm really not going to have a graph of the number of times I've seen people smiling at each other. And yet if you look back, you can see that there's more laughing. There's more sharing of personal stories. There's more relating to each other that goes, oh, you might be in India and we might be in Denmark. And actually even the people in Denmark are not from Denmark, but we get each other and there's a growing understanding. So we go from people working on the ground with, oh, we've completed 20 tasks or 25 tasks. Let's not even talk about if those are valuable or create the impact that you want. But as leaders, and I do believe Scrum Masters are servant leaders, which some people would think is, using the term servant is an offensive word. I'm quite happy to take the position of a servant in this leadership role, because we're creating a fragrance, we're creating an atmosphere, and you can walk past a bakery and you can go, I have no idea how many croissants they've sold today, but oh man, that smells good, Or you're from Texas, so you might be driving down the street and you catch a whiff of a barbecue coming through the car window, and you're like, oh man, that smells good. That is, leaders are to create the fragrance, to create the atmosphere, which in your growth, it's not easily measured at that level, but in time and in the story, you can look back and go, yeah, we did some good things. There's some things that we want to repeat there.
So if you could create a graph, maybe it would be friction versus no friction in relationships.
Yeah, and yet some of the best things, some of the best changes come through friction.
Yeah,
right?
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, because that's when we can make process clean. And here in Denmark, the Danes are working very hard to make great process. It's one of the reasons that so many things function really, really well. They're good because they've thought about the process, they've altered those processes, but a process will never care. And that's a difficult thing. It may give the illusion of care. The only thing that can truly, truly care is something that is living. A process is not living. It's something that by itself does not change. But people, we're alive and we can care. So, yeah.
I'd be curious to talk about AI after that.
Gosh.
Your AI Scrum Master. So going back to the idea of the golden handcuffs, what are you working to solve when it comes to that within the tech industry?
Okay, so
what's the problem?
So maybe just to frame what the golden handcuffs, it's not a term I created. It was a term that I heard when...
You could have taken full credit right now.
Yeah, but many people have gone, you liar.
They'll know.
I think I'm free from the golden handcuffs now. I wouldn't mind having a pair just to smelt them down and get. But golden handcuffs are basically when you are stuck somewhere. You are not free, but you're so in love with the gold, and it just looks so nice. It shines and it blinds you actually that you're maybe not as free as you should be. And I relate that to many tech people are well paid because their skills and their time is in demand, and they can often choose what they want to do. And if they don't find purpose in what they're doing, it's about the money that they get out at the end of the day. For some, that means getting to a place where their skill set doesn't take them further, so they get comfortable and they get well paid. They cannot leave their current place of employment unless they make a drastic, strong decision, which is against the comfort of those golden handcuffs. And when you live with those golden handcuffs and you are now not in charge of your future or the direction that you take, it can lead to low morale, because as humans, we are built and born for freedom. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and I forget the name of the guy, but he says, if man is born free and everywhere he is in chains. So freedom is something that we long for, it's something we work for, but many people are just stuck getting good money and can't get out. So one of the ways that I like to address, and you have to meet people at a personal level. Everybody's in a different place, right? But I believe it's really important to make the goal of the company, the goal of the department, and the goal of the team big. We can focus on tasks, but unless you explicitly add up what those tasks are, why they're there, and sometimes they're cut up at strategic level, so it's actually difficult to put it together why they exist. Again, it's that storytelling, and what are the goals? What are the short-term kind of achievable goals, and what's our it's a little bit further out there, 6 weeks, 3 months, the direction that we're taking. Making that story and making that a consistent story and a big story that we prefer in favor of tasks and finite things helps people to go, am I adding into that? Am I contributing to that? Have I moved the needle on that? Or have I kept busy just working in a Word document, moving spaces and commas around? But did that mean anything for anybody? So making goals and helping people to see their input and their into how those goals are formed, as well as how do they achieve those goals, I think is vital to being like, I have some purpose in this. It all comes back down to purpose.
Yeah. So you would say that finding a clear objective and making sure everybody's on board and reiterating that same thing over and over again.
That's one major way to do it for the team. You can always do it on a personal level, and that means it's expensive because it's lots of time, but that's meeting people one-on-one and going, oh, Shane, I see you're a podcast content creator and videographer right now, but I don't always see the joy in your eyes. This is not your story. I know you. But using it as an example, what's going on? What else gets you going? What else? And meeting people and helping others to explore ways to, well, if you're stuck here, how can you make something like moving, and which might be a completely inconceivable idea? Maybe you just help them to start breaking those things down, that they can see a little bit of light in that, well, if your future's not here, how can I help you in a very human way to get the support, get the education, get the courage to move somewhere that actually, where you will come alive? Because a life, 37 hours, 40 hours a week is a terrible thing to waste on something that just doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
And can we marry what matters to you to what matters the people that are around you and how that serves humanity? That's where things start to come alive.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to marry the ground level work and the people that are doing the work on the ground level versus the organizational goals and the higher ups? And how do you create pathways towards communication, towards understanding within your work?
It's obviously not easy, because most organizations where there's more than 15 to 20 people have people operating at a helicopter strategic view, and you've got people on the ground, and some people at a tactical level. And I don't believe there's any shortage of management consultants out there who will come in at an executive level, charge a fortune, give a few pointers, and hope that management takes it. And that is one approach. Mine has always been to come in at the team level and to get people bought in on the ground to start forming their goals. So maybe it's a little bit of a coup, maybe it's a little bit of a grassroots movement, but how can we get people speaking the same level, the same conversation at a ground level, and start to represent that up to go, this is going to help you, not this is good for us. Actually, we've been talking, we've been working, and when we do, you can see how our work is changing, what it's producing. Can you see how this might be good for you, and So I like to try to draw the line from the person on the ground immediately and start shaping management and managing upwards, actually, because it's the harder way. But if management will open up and they see people are bought in, you can't buy that kind of engagement. It's not a skill that is on someone's CV like, oh, I'm an engaged employee. You know, it is very easy. All power and culture flows very naturally down from the top to the bottom. So let me not do it that way. Many people in teams and organizations right now working behind their screens or on computers or at the task level have been bombarded with many initiatives from management. And that's not because management's trying to be mean. They also want the best, but then it's a trust story, you know. So if we can get the trust already and then build it upwards, it's a different way of doing it. And once you've got the hearts and minds of the people who are bought in, actually working and engaging in that conversation, again, they'll go anywhere. Even if they get stuck with management, they'll start finding other ways to get around it and to work and to break those things open. And if that doesn't get any buy-in, well, they'll start looking for a place where they can be alive and engaged. And I just would love to see everybody who's working alive and engaged in what they do. You know?
So, question for you, hit fire question. Say you're speaking to a company owner of a scale-up, and you as a Scrum Master have your own perspective, knowing the challenges that people on the ground level have. What would you say to someone who's looking to understand that perspective and might find difficulty because they're at such a high sort of bird's eye view and they don't have the experience on the ground level? What would you tell them in order to help them sort of understand how to make organizational decisions that keep people at the ground level sort of in mind when they make decisions?
It's difficult to answer that definitively.
Yeah.
Because every team, every leader, every person working on the ground is different. So encouraging I would have to have not the confidence, because there's not something to have confidence in. All I can say is to have the bravery to try some things. So adopting an experimental or learning mindset or culture is a key thing. So having that conversation, I won't be able to give you the direct thing, but if I was walking with a CEO and a team, it would be something along the lines of, I'm seeing this problem. Maybe it's a problem of focus in the team right now. And I can see that you can help by limiting the number of initiatives on the go. So let's try and experiment. First, let's map out all the 6-month initiatives that are on the go at the moment, and let's make an experiment that if we've got 7 company-wide initiatives on the go and it's taken X amount of time to do that, let's try bring it down to 5 things. So I'm going to ask bravery from the CEO or the managing person to limit the amount of work that's creating focus at a leadership level, and then we measure, and then we have a look, and then you can also speak to the team, go, you see your CEO is making some hard decisions about, and they've got opportunities all around, but actually they know that focus is important to you. So they're starting to limit the number of things. You know, can you see, and you're starting to help different camps see the same problem from different areas, and then just measure and go, did that work? And maybe the results are inconclusive, so we have another experiment, and maybe we see that definitely did work. And my experiments with focus have always been doing less produces more, actually. But we see that does work. Oh, so that's actually, so experimenting was a good thing, and we're open to do more experiments, and we've learned something on the focus line. So do we try drop it down another thing, or do we try focus in some other area?
Yeah.
It's that kind of cultural conversation and learning conversation, I think, is really important for any tech company that is dealing with complex problems. I said this at Laerdal, where I'm working at the moment. I said, in the complex problem space, there are no best practices. And again, these are not my words. This is from the Kuhneven framework. We're just learning things. There's some good practices and things we're learning. As soon as you say best, it's like, oh, you've just shut the door on conversation. You've just shut the door to experimenting with something else. So good is good, but we should always be willing to try something out. And can we get consensus or some kind of buy-in around what it is we try?
So aside from the willingness to adapt and try out new things, what would you say is the best approach, or maybe a good practice, not the best?
You're a fast learner, Shane.
A good practice for someone in management who's actually overseeing a Scrum Master to help them thrive in what they do.
Having regular times to talk about, first of all, what the Scrum Master is seeing, not in a sharing secrets kind of way, but in a transparent, open way. Everything needs to be in the spirit of transparency and openness, right? Remember, openness was one of the Scrum values. So that's, engaging a Scrum Master, go, what are you seeing happen at team level, product level, and organizational level? And surfacing those problems. And then for the Scrum Master to be hearing the same thing, like, what are you seeing? Because nobody has the full picture, right? I don't like that idea of it's your truth and my truth. I don't like that narrative. I believe there is truth. We just have little parts of it, So I need to hear what are you seeing? How can I take that in as a part of my observations? So having an open door to Scrum Masters, I believe is really important. Hearing them as well as, and hearing them first, maybe because they will want to listen to you. You're the CEO, So it's obvious that people want to please you. Actually, people want to help you and the organization go forward. And then be present when, a key part of Scrum and any agility is actually when you do work, to review that work in a state that should be basically releasable at that point. So we want to do small increments that we can give to somebody as like a little gift to somebody outside the team. And I talked about having goals. It would be great if a CEO could just have an understanding of what was the goal that they said they were going to do, and then come back 2 weeks later and to see, did you achieve that goal or not? Just it's that awareness on you don't need to know every task, every detail, but the team wants to surface their work into a big goal. Can you see it? Can you see how that is shifting things and providing value? And can you actually enter into the conversation of, I saw you've done that. Be aware that that might not be producing the value that we want. So how can we experiment to create better value? Or the CEOs learn something from a strategic level that the team would never have known about. Can we stop the handover and actually have more togetherness so that we're breaking down the broken telephone and we're having an all-together conversation. So kumbaya, we're walking together, creating something together.
So what would you say is the thing that makes an extraordinary Scrum Master? Now you talked about a few different types of Scrum Masters based on different types of goals. But what have you found that makes this your playing field? Like you are like, if I could say what I've heard you say is that you were wired for this. You have a background in technology, but the place where you are able to provide an extraordinary value is actually in elevating the productivity and the morale of the company through the people that are in it. So how would you describe a successful Scrum Master?
Yeah. It's also based on the organization that takes it in. So historically, I've seen some project managers become Scrum Masters, which I think is a difficult journey. I've never been a project manager because I never wanted to coordinate people. I didn't want to coordinate tasks and people. So some people have the view that a Scrum Master is a delivery manager, just helping to get things out through the door. And there is a stance of that. If there's something that pops up, or a blocker, you want to help uncover that blocker, help maybe remove that blocker. But in time, you actually want to help train or coach the team to remove blockers themselves. So it doesn't become a permanent role of the Scrum Master. In fact, a Scrum Master should always be looking to get themselves out of a job. How does the team improve without the Scrum Master? But there's always more improvement, right? One of the things that has been key for me has been low ego.
So you would say you're a very humble person.
I'm so humble, maybe the most humble person I know. Yeah, that could be the only way it could go, right? But to desire to be in the front is not always a helpful thing for a Scrum Master. You know, you're talking about servant leadership. The servant is actually coming down low and helping somebody else win. And that has been, because I want to see other people succeed, that it's only when I started seeing other people succeed, I thought, oh, I feel good about that. That feels like success to me. Now, that hasn't always been good for my career or for my paycheck, but it gave me something that I took home going, oh, I've helped move people. I've remained friends with people from 10, 15 years ago that we still have we're in different countries and we have a conversation. So having that mindset that it's not about me, that helps, because then if you're not thinking about yourself and your title and your career, that frees you up that you can speak a certain amount of truth to power, which again is helpful. I said culture and power flows down. Some of the most important ways for any person is to actually be able to learn to manage upwards. It's the easiest thing to manage down, but how do you manage upwards? In a respectful way, in a way that opens conversation, in a way that doesn't just block things off, but you still have something that you believe and you can represent that. So I believe I'm wired for it, and actually a good Scrum Master will be wired in that they're seeing how they can serve somebody else. And that's, for me, that great dynamic change is from what am I getting out of this, and teaching other people, what are you getting out of this? So that's way beyond just task delivery.
So let me give a practical assumption. Would you describe one example of that being, instead of you being the one to lead the meetings in the end, if we're talking about a meeting, then you would be influencing someone else to want to take initiative and start to create structures around meetings? Or what does that look like on a practical level?
Yeah. One of the classic, probably anybody watching this podcast who's from tech will know about a stand-up, which is many teams have it, where it's a daily meeting where you, historically, when we were not all remote, you stood around a board for 15 minutes and everybody kind of synchronized over a set of the goals that they have. And one of the first companies where I worked, this was a new concept to them. So, at the certain time, I would be like, hey guys, it's time for stand-up. And I'd get up and go stand by the board and everybody would come around and I'd be like, okay, these are our goals, and kind of invite people to, what happened yesterday, what happened, anything stopping you or blocking you, what's your plan for today? And that can lead to a status kind of conversation. So first there was okay, what are the goals? And then we introduced something like, oh, don't wait for me to say, okay, now you should speak, now you should speak. Just you hand it to the next person. And that creates the culture where now people, instead of just waiting to say their bit, they are, I need to know who's spoken. So I need to actually listen, because if I go, Shane's already spoken, and then I say, Shane, you take it. It's like, no, but I've spoken. Then it's clear the person who tried to hand it over is not listening or was not paying attention. And then we had, sometimes I actually realized, because I was standing by the board and looking at them, because when people talk to you, you look at them in the eyes, right? That was still that they were speaking to me. And I'm like, I'm not caring about you. I want you to look at each other. So one of the tactics that I read about was just don't look at them. So I would call the meeting and I'd stand up and then, okay, it's time for stand up. These are the goals. And then I'd just look at my feet, which was very disconcerting because now they're looking at me and I'm not looking at them. So eventually they just start talking to themselves and talking to each other. And of course, when things go well, celebrate it. Whatever you celebrate, people want to recreate. Go, guys, that was great. That wasn't a status update. You weren't speaking to me, you were speaking to each other. And eventually it was, oh guys, I had a mystery meeting that I couldn't be at stand-up. And you start to remove yourself from certain things as a test to see what happens when you're not there. And then just saying simple things like, the goal is for me to get out here, that you take over. And sometimes you assign it to somebody else. I'd like you to facilitate this meeting. It becomes especially important when you're looking at work. I'd start the meeting and then hand it to the product owner who runs the meeting, and then he wouldn't present the work. He would get the people who actually did the work to present their work, and that becomes just like buy-in for what they've done.
So you're creating a self-motivated, responsible culture.
That's what I hope, right?
You're given power, you're given authority, and then your goal is really just to disseminate it.
I give it back to the people and say like,
okay, what are you gonna do with it?
Yeah, and you don't want to waste your 37 hours working. You want it to be better. So how can you make it better? Yeah, I'm giving you some power.
What are some challenges with larger teams communicating amongst different departments that you really work on creating frameworks to solve those problems?
So it's always that trade-off between size of teams and complexity and number of things going on. So one side was focus on first of the number of things that a team can be doing, and people just add more people in. But every new person you add in is an exponential number of communication lines that open up, right? So trying to keep a team small and focused is key. That's also, like, idealistically, I would love that a group of mature people all share responsibility. The truth is that we have different generations, different cultures, different ages of working in a company and length of service, so that's not evenly spread. But how do you give that? You will see some people are more responsible, some people are less responsible, and so you want to celebrate them, and the less responsible do something without being asked to do it. And some people just do that more as natural kind of way of being. So that's as soon as you give a title for responsibility, it can often take away from them. People, oh, that's their job now.
Yeah.
And it's a frustrating thing. But that, again, when it comes back to when you're reviewing the work, we don't say, oh, person A did this and person B did this. Like, oh, the team either failed or succeeded as a team. So keeping teams small, keeping them focused, and then finding different ways to not manage dependencies, because that's, again, then we want to get people to manage projects and then things get cut up. How can we eliminate our dependencies by organizing differently and maybe organizing quickly? Instead of having static teams, can we have dynamic teams that, again, get behind a mission instead of getting behind a team name? So yeah, there's quite a few different things that you can play with and try. And try to keep fluid.
Water break?
That's a good one. I like it.
Now I want to get to the fun part, which is...
You mean more fun?
That was incredibly fun, Rory. Let's talk about, are you going to be replaced by artificial intelligence? Speaking about automation and technology and the human interaction, can a robot care?
Can a robot care? Wow. Things I was not ready for. I don't have a PhD in this. I mean, I was talking about processes earlier, right? And a process cannot, I believe a process cannot care. It can give the illusion of care. Can a AI care? No, I don't believe it can. It is a series of very fast processes and algorithms that are operating to simulate human conversation or thought faster than maybe we can do it. It can do incredible things. Can it care? No, I don't believe it can. I think that is a uniquely, I would say, human kind of thing. And then, as I'm saying, I'm going, yeah, but warm-blooded animals give that to their kind of brood as well, and sometimes across creatures, right? So there's something about creation.
Can you get the white tablet? The fake placebo effect.
Yeah.
Can you convince yourself even though you know it's a robot? Yeah. There was a movie about this.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you can, and there's I'm seeing all kinds of interesting stories of people. It's sad not because that you see it happening, that people are connecting themselves to and giving personality to a set of processes. But it's more, the sadness for me is that some people are so lonely that that feels like a viable alternative. We won't see that in any other creature except humans. And that's because we are, I believe, more than any other creation, wired for connection, wired for community, wired to belong, to mean something, for purpose. I cannot believe that it is just for this quick moment and then it's done. I believe there's something deeper than that. You know. So can ChatGPT care? No, I don't believe it can. And of course, that arises to the question of, well, what does it do when it becomes insanely more intelligent and more given more power? I'll let the experts weigh in on that, right? Maybe you'll be fooled. There's one thing's for sure: we are very gullible. We are very open to being convinced of other things. But if we really start believing that a computer is caring for us, or a set of silicon is caring for us, we have deepened our gullibility.
Now let me ask you, as far as the use of AI and moving the needle forward, have you found a use for it in your own workflow or within your organization's workflow?
You know, at an organizational level, there are many tools that are coming out and have been made available to us. Obviously, every organization wants to do that in a safe way, and then there's a lot to do with data privacy. You know, to get something out, you have to feed the machine, right? You have to give it some input that it can take in, and that's all kinds of interesting questions about what you can share with that. Obviously, you know, Microsoft has things that, and they've got their own laws and or rules that govern how they treat data and things like that. So, but we've been given access to the developers, and actually the whole company being given access to tools to play around and see, well, what can we do with this? And they are massively helpful. They really are. It's a new skill set to learn. There's you've got to rewire your thinking. You know, how much of this is me? How much is the AI doing? You know, how much is it taking care of? What does that mean for my sense of accomplishment and where I was involved?
You feel like you're cheating?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a sense of, and it's a AI can be a great starter of things. You know, you may have some thoughts, but you don't know how you start that process. These language models have got great ways of just bringing some thoughts out, and you go, okay, that's not the end product by any means. That's a good draft to help me kind of start my process.
So ideation.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found any other, like, maybe not prompts, but any other use cases that have been helpful for you on a very practical level? Like, oh, we've been able to automate this process.
Not in what I do,
Okay.
but I haven't dug into what the developers are doing. I think there's some incredible things coming just on the code level, right? Where guys are be able to describe some sense of a problem and get something back that will offer some alternatives to, again, start them off.
Yeah.
But I've got no intention to go play around with that. It's outside of my domain now, and I'm thankful for that. But I am interested just to see how this plays out over time.
Do you have a prediction?
No.
You told me a funny story about women in the 1950s. I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, and I mean, I could risk all of it being incorrect, right? But so the story goes that there was a company in the States in around the 1950s, or maybe it was the 60s, maybe it was the 40s, I think it was the 50s, that created the ultimate cake recipe. And all you had to do was add water, mix it, put it into the oven at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, and every time it was a perfect cake that came out. And that sounds like an ultimate product, right? I mean, that's a marketer's dream. Just add water, mix it, put it in, you get your cake. And the product was not successful at all. It was a flop. And it took some time for them to figure it out. But it came on the basis that, well, they did some market research and they tried some things, and then they changed the recipe that the housewives in the 1950s, what they need to do was add some water and the ingredients, but also add one egg into the product. and the product was a massive success. And the theory behind it, if I remember the story correctly, was that because now these ladies could see something of their effort, they could see something of themselves in it, they could see their fingerprint, and however small, there was something of themselves in this cake.
I hear the word ego ringing through my mind.
Yeah.
The need to feel responsible and capable.
The ego wants to know that it means something. You know, it must be the most terrible thing to go like, I'm completely alone and I mean nothing to anybody. That's, you know, we feel sorry for the ladies in the 19, many of them, because they were denied you know, many opportunities. They were restrained to being carers of the home, and many of them did brilliant jobs. They actually raised strong kids and families that actually took, you know, Western world forward. But so for them to be like, I actually also want to feel like I'm doing something. You know, I think that's a strong desire, and I can see something like that in my life.
Yeah.
If I just have to wake up every day and everything, I still haven't answered that question for myself. What would I do?
Yeah.
I'd probably spend more time asking these questions to other people, going, what would you do? My question, that's what I'd do. I'd spend my time asking other people to see how deep they go and what makes them tick.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was listening to the story of an investor, and life as an investor, you'd think it's like sunshine and rainbows, but it's actually very difficult to sit around and read a lot of books and maybe realize that you're being presently involved in a company could actually be detrimental because you're slowing the company down in a sense. This was the experience for that investor, and I think it's interesting when you realize that you know, what do you do when you're no longer, you don't need to do anything, you know?
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? And I find it interesting to think about the possibility of, if I was given a template for the possible marketing plan or something, could I handle knowing that it was done for me? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I would waste time. I would waste tons of time making it sound a lot like me, and creating something that's uniquely me.
Yeah.
Because somehow we need to feel like it's us.
Yeah.
You know, it's in our DNA, and we are creating something rather than it just being given to us. Because, you know, it's just like the idea that information that has been given to us, or in the case of coaching, one of the main pillars of coaching in terms of question asking is that if I tell you the answer, you won't listen.
Yeah.
Like, you'll hear it, but you won't own it.
Yeah.
But if I ask you the right question, a non-leading question, and you say it, there's ownership there.
Yeah.
And when you take ownership, then suddenly it's your idea.
Yeah.
And the best coaches are actually able to influence through questions, and not by giving the information, but by helping people realize what they already know. And so I think it's in that same idea, that line of thread of how much are we, you know, willing to, you know, have the answers being given to us.
Yeah.
Before we say, no, I need to make this a little bit dirtier. It's too pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And just to settle on that, again, fact that there will only ever be one Shane Foley. That thought, there could be somebody that looks similar to you. There could be somebody that looks different but has the same set of skills. There could be all these variables that come close, but there will only ever be one Shane Foley. To spend your time just being the same as everybody else, I mean, there's more to dig into there. You know, there's more. There's something of you that I get to encounter that I would never get anywhere else, and that becomes a deep thought.
Yeah.
Right. Of all those kind of conversations you could dig in and actually meet somebody and see them. Really, maybe that's why we need an eternity, because there's a lot of beauty in people out there. You know, even those who are very rough and broken and beaten up, there's a lot of beauty out there.
Yeah.
So
I think it goes back down to the idea that artificial intelligence cannot care, but sentient beings, people who feel, have experiences, are real people, there's an intrinsic value there.
Yeah.
Right? It's not something that can be replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe not a prediction, but maybe the run of this thing is that at first AI gets to do more and more. That leaves us with these questions in our mind. But maybe we actually do we start answering them, or do we just find new ways to be distracted away from them? Yeah. And we're always going to be offered choices. Yeah. So which way are we going to go? Yeah. Either way, it's going to be exciting.
With everything we've talked about today, all the experiences that you've had in your life, the industries you've decided to serve, the work that you do, what gets you up in the morning? Like, why do you do what you do?
I mean, I've worked across a number of different industries, and some of those industries have way more purpose. I'm privileged to work at Laerdal right now, which has an incredible story of helping to save 1 million more lives by 2030 with their life-saving products. That's a strong purpose. And I've worked in some places where there was not a lot of
Of course. We're reaching the very end of our time. Great podcast, Rory. Catch you later.
I've worked in some where what we were doing definitely did not matter, but the common core element on all of it was just people. And that can be cliched, but I believe people they're eternal beings. There's just something beautiful about people, and the world, in my view, is slightly broken, but people are the reason that make it all worth it. You never know how you're going to get surprised by, you saw something the one way, and then you have a conversation with somebody, and just things change. Something has shifted. Either you help shift them, they help shift you. That kind of connection cannot be replicated anywhere else. And so I want to see more of that, and I want to see people take something of that on for themselves to come alive, live a life that is worth living and is worth replicating, a life that is beautiful, is safe, is worth emulating, and that actually this world in 50 years, 100 years, 150 years looks different, but for the better.
It's a good mission to live by.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, Rory, thank you so much for a great conversation as always. And maybe I'll invite you for another podcast.
Thanks, Shane. Let's do it again. What a privilege. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you received some value from this, then please like and share and comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Rory's perspective as a Scrum Master and the values that he brings. It was a very good conversation. So thank you again.
Great. Thanks, Shane.